Hello, I am Claudia Rimondo and I work in the Submission and Processing Unit in ECHA. Today I will give you a presentation about the latest improvements to submitting Poisson Centers notifications. Most of these improvements will become available at the end of October, and they refer to the dossier preparation because we have a new Poisson Center format that becomes available together with the Euclid format. On top of that, we also have a number of improvements that refer to the dossier submissions, and you will see improvements that are relevant for the ECHA submission portal and for the system-to-system service. Now let's move to the improvements to the dossier preparation. The first PCN format change is a change that will give you the possibility to prepare a dossier that contains more than one mixture. That is, you will be able to prepare a dossier to support a group submission. In this case, the mixtures that you include in the dossier must be all mixtures that share the same classification for health and physical hazards. When you build the composition of each mixture, you have to take into account that each mixture composition document where you include the components of the mixture have to be self-contained, meaning that each mixture composition will have to contain the full list of components. There will not be like a summary for the common parts of the mixtures that you want to include in the group submission. Each mixture composition will have to live by itself. Once you have created your mixture compositions, the new format will also give you the possibility to create multiple documents, and we are talking about Euclid documents, for the classification and labeling, for the toxicological information, for the product information, as well as for the pH values. And then, from each of these documents, you can easily link all the relevant mixture compositions with reference to the kind of submission that you want to prepare. Another format change is a format change that will give you the possibility to indicate a multi-component product. When we speak about multi-component product, we refer to products that contain a set of distinct mixtures, like reagents or testing kits or dishwashing tablets. And here, each mixture has necessarily to be notified individually with its own unique formula identifier. But what we were missing earlier was the possibility to link, to indicate that all these mixtures notified separately actually belong to the same product. With the new format, you will have the possibility to give this indication. And you can do it by using a new identifier called PCN multi-component product identifier. When you are in the product information document, from the section unique formula identifiers, you will see in the pick list of the field regulatory program a new identifier, again this PCN multi-component product identifier. And you can use it in all the notifications that are related to the same multi-component product. Now, each company can decide how to generate, how to use it, what kind of format to give to this new identifier. It could be an identifier that already exists, for instance, the trade name, or it can be a brand new one, like a new universal unique identifier. The thing is that you will be free to use it the way you prefer, because there will not be validation rules checking how you use it or which format you give to it. Another format change will give you the possibility to indicate that a specific product is no longer marketed. At the same time, this format change will make sure that appointed bodies and poison centers that receive the notifications will remain up to date with all the information related to these seized products. And that is necessary because even though products are seized from the market, they can still remain in some cabinet or in some drawers in the households. So it is important that appointed bodies and especially poison centers keep receiving updated information about them. The way this has been implemented in the new PCM format is at two levels. At the product information record, you will now find two different lists. One list is the list of markets where your product continues to be marketed. In parallel, you will also have an additional list where you can indicate the countries from where your product is not marketed anymore. And this list is called the seized market country list. At the dossier header level, the list of countries will remain as is, and it will be the sum, the combination of the countries that you have listed under the active market list, as well as the countries in the seized market list. And this is necessary, as explained before, to allow appointed bodies and poison centers to keep receiving the information about the seized products. In order to support these new format changes, we also needed to include new reasons for updates. So basically, when you are in the dossier header and you declare that you want to submit a dossier, now you will have 3 more values you can select from. One of them is a seized product from the market to support the feature that I just presented. And it goes together with another reason for update, which is replace product on a market in case a seized product is marketed again. Then we have the addition of a third reason, which is change in mixture composition without requiring a new UV. And this is a reason that you can use in case a mixture needs to be removed from a group submission, for instance, or in case you want to move from a group submission to a standard submission. And these are actually really cases where you can have changes in the mixture composition, but you do not need to provide a new UV. The new format will also allow you to provide the names for the standard formulas, the fuels, and the interchangeable component groups in a more user-friendly way. Currently, from the mixture identity document, you have the possibility to select one of those names from a very long list where both the standard formula names and the fuels names are listed with no distinction. And currently, there is also no possibility to provide your own interchangeable component groups name. So we wanted to improve this part, and what we did is that from the field other identifiers in the mixture identity, we have included, besides the standard formula value, 2 more values, fuels and interchangeable component group. From the name type field, when you select the value standard formula, in the field name, you will see a list of values reflecting both the names for standard formulas and fuels. However, only the names relevant to standard formulas will be selectable. Similarly, when from the name type field you select fuels, from the field name you will see a list of values, including the names for both standard formulas and fuels, but only the values relevant for fuels, meaning the fuels names, will be selectable. A slightly different behavior is expected if you select the interchangeable component group from the field name type. In that case, the field name will be automatically populated with the value other. And then, as many free text field as the number of languages you have selected in the dossier header will pop up, will be made available. And that's because you are required to provide the name for your interchangeable component group in all the languages you have indicated in the dossier header. With reference to the European product categorization system, two categories have been included, PC-DEC 26 and 27. The first one refers to products for molding, casting, rigid and flexible forms, including resin mixtures. And the second one is products for the polymerization of resins and forms. Then also consider that two already existing categories have been improved in their description. A few words have been added to these two categories. The first category now says other plant protection products and related mixtures. As you can see in the slide, the part in blue is the newly added part. And then we have also other plant protection products not already covered and mixture used in plant protection products, including adjuvants. And these last two words have been introduced. As it often happens when we have the Euclid major releases, the new Euclid format, which of course affects the Poisson Center format as well, includes an update of the global harmonized system for classification and labeling. And in this slide, you can see the list of the hazard phrases that have been added. All these format changes have already been documented in the draft version of the new PCM format that is available on the Poisson Center's website. In here, you can find the list of changes and the comparison between version 3 and version 4 of the PCM format, which is the version that will be released at the end of October. Besides that, you will find also the modified phrase groups and the new format in Word document files. We aim at sharing the final version, the final version number 4 of the PCM format at the end of October, together with the Euclid major release. And besides the documentation that is already available and will be updated with a very final touch, we also aim at sharing an updated version of the list of the validation rules that are relevant for PCM notifications. Finally, when it comes to the PCM preview report, I would like to remind you that with the October release, the PCM preview report that now you can find among the type of reports offered by Euclid will no longer be available. We announced this in past events, and we took this decision in order to optimize the maintenance effort for the PCM related reports. So the PCM preview report will be decommissioned, but an alternative report will remain available. This alternative report that has already been available to the users since the April release is called the PCM Dossier Viewer, also known as the HTML report. And you can save this HTML report, you can store it the same way you were storing the PDF report. Now let's move to the improvements related to the dossier submission. In September, we released a new feature that gives you the possibility to generate multiple system-to-system keys per legal entity. That means that one user that belongs to several legal entities now can have different system-to-system keys, like personal keys, and it can have one key per legal entity. Looking at this from the industry systems angle, that means that an industry system might perform operations on behalf of multiple legal entities that are all associated to that user, as it would happen for consultants or IT providers. Now, for managing the system-to-system credentials, also a new user interface has been developed in the ECHA accounts. And in here, the users can manage their personal API keys in all the companies where they have their system-to-system account. To get more details about this new feature and also some more technical insights, I recommend you to consult the manual system-to-system submission for industry available on the ECHA website. Again, with reference to the system-to-system service, in July, we released the third version of the application programming interface of the API. With this release, we included the dossier UUID and the persistent system sequence identifier, so-called PSSI. We included the referenced PSSI in the submission report. We included the support for multiple keys for each legal entity to be able to address the requirement, the feature, that I presented in the previous slide. We added the event flag to show the past submission with warnings, and the correlation ID was introduced for your own purposes, basically, that you can use for your own purposes. Now, nowadays we have 3 versions of the API available. Take into account that at the end of October, version 1 will be decommissioned. So that means that after October, only version 2 and version 3 will remain active. Again, for further details and technicalities, you can consult the documentation available for the system-to-system service on the ECHA website. Finally, some improvements to the submission search page of the ECHA submission portal refer to new additional search criteria, dossier name, and the addition of the dossier UUID to the search results. Moreover, from September, also the Excel file that you get when you export your search results has been improved. Actually, based on feedback that we received from industry, the order of the columns in the Excel file has been changed to better support you in the way you handle the information about the submitted PCN dossiers. Many improvements took place, but a few other are coming. And the next one, which is expected by the end of 2021, is a feature to be able to disable submissions. The thing is that in these years that the ECHA submission portal has been receiving PCN notifications, we received strong requests about giving the possibilities to companies to disable a submission when, for instance, a test dossier was submitted in the production environment by mistake, or to disable a submission when data was submitted incorrectly, but because of the validation rules in place, it was not possible to amend the information via an update. Or again, companies ask for the possibility to disable a submission in case foreign users would submit with their own legal entity instead of using the legal entity of the real duty holder. This feature will become available on the submission portal, and it will be available also for those using the system-to-system service. What I would like to highlight is that disabling a submission is not like eliminating the dossier from the database. The dossier will remain in the database, but it will be indicated, it will be flagged as a submission that was not supposed to be submitted, basically, like a dossier that is not valid. The dossier will remain physically on the database, but you can consider it, you can flag it as disabled. And one more thing that is important to highlight is that disabling a submission has a completely different meaning from seizing a product from the market. As you could see from the previous slides, the solution to seize a product from the market is very different from the one that will be available to disable a full submission. And indeed, it is so because it has a very different meaning. Disabling the submission refers to the whole dossier, while seizing the product is an action that can reach a deeper granularity at the product information record level. If you want to stay informed, please follow the LinkedIn groups, the ECHA's Poison Centers notification, as well as the system-to-system support network. You can also follow our news on the ECHA's Poison Center website, and you will soon have an updated version of the Poison Center practical guide, including more instructions to help you preparing your PCN notifications in view of the new PCN format changes. And that concludes my presentation, and I thank you for your attention.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this new session about Poison Center notification. My name is Daniele Ape and I'm part of the ECHA Poison Center team. The focus of this presentation will be on the workability solution, so-called interchangeable component group solution. It's a particular solution which has been introduced by the latest amendment of Annex 8, and it intends to help the submitters, notifier, when they face specific challenges with the identification of the composition of their mixture because of an unpredictable or highly variable composition. This solution will allow them to group components and is a solution which can be applied to any sector and any mixture. So it's a cross-sector solution. I will present briefly the main principles underpinning this solution, and then in the second part of my presentation, I will show a short demo to show practically how the interchangeable component group applies. In addition, we have prepared and made available a practical short guide manual, which will be available in the event page on the ECHA website, where the main practical instruction on how to use the interchangeable component group are included. Now, the challenges that some companies may face when notifying the composition are due to the fact that certain components are present in an unpredictable concentration. This is because some of the components may be used interchangeably. So the exact mixture composition cannot be established at each point in time, or cannot be precisely enough established. And this, notwithstanding, there are no changes possibly with regard to the classification and the toxicological properties of the mixture. So this will trigger an unnecessary high number of notification and updates and new fee to be included on the label. So the interchangeable components group solution is basically provides the possibility to apply less strict requirements in terms of compositional information. So the submitter can benefit from a higher flexibility in the notification of the composition. And the solution seeks a balance between the information which is needed by the poison center and the objective difficulty, administrative burden, and difficulty to comply with the legal provision. So the main benefit is a reduction on the number of notifications which are needed and in the number of updates. Of course, it is necessary for these components to be grouped in an interchangeable component group to meet specific criteria, which I will present shortly. Just to give a brief example, one of the most common cases when this solution may apply is when a company uses different supplier for a component, for instance, a mixture, which is not exactly from a chemical point of view the same, but has the same function in the final mixture. So there are no changes in the technical specification of the final mixture, there are no changes in the mixture classification, and there are no changes in the toxicological profile. But simply, these mixture are chemically different, so they will lead to a different final composition. The component do not necessarily need to have the same function, technical function in the final mixture. Another example is when for the formulation of a mixture, different raw materials are used. Even if they are not technically equivalent, they have the final mixture has the same other classification, and still there's no impact on the emergency health response. But the use of different raw materials or different components according to the availability, for instance, lead to different final mixtures, which will need different notification and different UFIs if the strict Annex 8 provision would be applied. Now, the ICG solution, as we said, is basically the possibility to group individual components, which can be either substances or mixture, under, let's call it an umbrella component, without the need to indicate the specific individual concentration of each component. So grouped components may be used, as we saw in the previous example, one instead of the other, or they simply can be used unpredictably. Not necessarily one or the other. They can be used in a variable relative concentration. So in order to be grouped in an ICG, components have to meet one of the two sets of criteria which are included in Annex 8. The components can be grouped when they have the same classification for health and physical hazard, they have the same technical function in the final mixture, and they have the same toxicological properties. Alternatively, the components can also be grouped if they have the same classification but limited to specific other classes, so they have to be classified only for specific other classes, and they have a similar pH, and then are maximum 5 components in this group. So in this second set of criteria, there's no mention to the technical function. In addition to this, there is one common general criteria which applies to both sets, which is basically the need for the hazard identification and all the additional information required by Annex 8 on the final mixture to be the same. So regardless the specific interchangeable component present in a specific batch, the hazard identification and all the information required by Annex 8 on the final mixture must remain the same. Now, the guidance on Annex 8 provides more explanation and detail on the application of each single criteria. What I want to underline here is the fact that not all this information is legally required to be included in the notification. Only some of it is, and therefore only this information can be automatically checked. Like, for instance, the classification has to be the same, and the fact that there must be maximum 5 components if you apply the second set of criteria. The rest of the information is not mandatory required, can be, as we will show shortly, can be provided voluntarily, but is not automatically checked, and is the responsibility of the submitter to make sure that these criteria are met. I always want to remind that the authorities may want to ask for additional information if it's necessary. How it all works from a practical point of view. as you will see shortly, the interchangeable component group is considered from a technical point of view in our submission system as a mixture in mixture, even if it is not a mixture in mixture, because it's not one single component, but is a group of components. It is necessary to provide a meaningful name to this interchangeable component group. And this means that the Poisson center operator has to be able to easily understand which kind of component may be included in the final composition. The interchangeable component can be either substances or mixture in mixture, and there will be a specific tick box to flag that this component is actually an interchangeable component group. Therefore, specific information requirement and validation rules apply. From a practical point of view, I will show you what are the main steps, which is basically adding a new mixture component in the final mixture composition, name it, check the box for ICG, then add one by one each single interchangeable component within this group, and each component has to be identified as for the standard rules. Finally, you will provide the concentration and the classification for the group as a whole, and not for each single component. So finally, the Annex 8 we know requires, for specific reason, full and precise composition. Then when the composition in certain situation is highly variable or is unpredictably variable, because as we saw, you may use different supplier for a component which is similar in a continuous production process. So this situation, the solution allows for less detailed information. The solution is applicable to any sector and any mixture, and the main principle is that the impact on the emergency response is minimized. Now, in my demo, I will use as an example a general R surface cleaner, which has a composition, and one of these components, which is a MIM, is used as a emulsifier in the final composition, but is purchased from different suppliers. And each supplier provides a MIM, which has the same technical function, is similar enough for the formulator, but is not exactly chemically the same. So basically, since the production process is continuous, in each batch, you may have an unknown percentage of each of these components, but the total concentration of the emulsifier is known, of course, and has to be provided according to the limit of Annex 8. From each supplier, you receive certain information about the MIM. As I said, I will show you each MIM grouped in the interchangeable component group has to be identified following the standard requirement. So in this demo, I will focus the attention on the creation of an interchangeable component group. So we will not go through the whole preparation of a dossier. What is important to underline is that from the dashboard, you can decide to create substance component or mixture components or even an ICG component in advance and then include it in the final composition record. This is because the system allows you to set a specific working context. The more straightforward way, and is the option that I will show you today, is to include a components directly in the final mixture composition document. Therefore, I open my draft dossier that I was preparing, and I will focus on the mixture composition document. From the navigation tree, you can easily navigate through the different fields and part of the dossier. My mixture composition documents already contains all the other substances and components with their specific concentration range in accordance to Annex 8. I will now focus on the creation of the ICG. Now you always add a new item to the mixture composition document. And important to be noted that components can, in the mixture composition document, you can always include only substance dataset or mixture datasets. These are the only two datasets that can be included in the composition. When you want to create an ICG, you will have to start from including a mixture dataset. As we said, the system treats the ICG from a technical point of view as mixture and mixture. If you would have prepared the dataset for the ICG in advance, you will have it here. In this case, I create a new record and I provide the name. This is the name of the ICG. It has to be as meaningful as possible. According to the legal text, has to reflect at least the technical function of the component. The legal entity owner is requested by the system mandatorily for every kind of component. Please remember, this is not required, is not checked, is simply a technical constraint. Now the ICG record has been created. The record has been created. Here is the part where you will flag the fact that this record is an interchangeable component group. This will warn the system, will alert the system, and once it's saved, the system in the navigation tree, the system will show you the relevant fields. Now the function of the whole group can be included here, and as I said, is not mandatory. And the typical concentration or concentration range has to be provided for the group as a whole. So in this case, you don't know which exact interchangeable component is present in each batch of the mixture, but you have to know the total concentration of the component used as a emulsifier. And this concentration range has to be provided in accordance to Annex 8, which is based on the classification of the component. Once I save, the new interchangeable component group is included in the mixture composition document, and by expanding the navigation tree, I can find all the records which are relevant for this specific component, for the specific group. Now, you have to proceed with including in the ICG composition document, one by one, all the interchangeable components. Each interchangeable component, as I said, has to be identified in accordance to the standard rule. Therefore, in case of mixture in mixture, it depends whether the supplier has provided you with a UFI or not. So as for the final mixture composition, I add one by one my components. For simplicity, in this case, I pre-prepared my mixture in mixture, my MIMS records in advance. So by selecting mixture product, I can find them in my database. And I will start with the first one, emulsifier blend gold. I do not necessarily need to provide the function. I do not need to provide the concentration because the concentration is provided at group level. Once I save, I will find in my navigation tree all the fields related to this new component that I included in the group. In this case, I do not have a UFI. My supplier did not provide me with a UFI, so I had to provide a composition available from the SDS as a minimum, and by expanding the navigation tree, you can find already this information simply because I provided it in advance, but you can include it directly here. And then I need to provide the information about my supplier. All these records are records that can be prepared in advance and can be reused every time that are needed. I don't need any other information about the MIM because the classification and the concentration, as we said, is provided at group level. Now I go back to the interchangeable component group composition and I add the second component, which is the emulsifier blend silver. Again, I don't need to provide any further information, because once I save the information, my new component will be included in the interchangeable component group. And since I pre-prepared the record in advance, I have already my composition, which comes from the SDS as a minimum, and the information about the supplier. Now I go to include the last interchangeable component group, interchangeable component in the group, which is the emulsifier ES35. I save. And in this case, my supplier provided me with the UFI of this MIM, because this MIM has been notified itself in the same member state where I'm placing my mixture on the market. Therefore, I can identify the MIM, the mixture in mixture, with the UFI, in addition to the product name, the product identifier. Now, the submission can be updated in the future if I want to add a new interchangeable component, or I want to remove an existing interchangeable component with no need to change the UFI. What I need to do now is to complete the information on the interchangeable component group by adding the classification. In this case, all my interchangeable components, they have exactly the same classification. Therefore, I can provide this information only at group level. There is no need to provide labeling information, even if it is always possible to automatically calculate. There's no, as you said, there is the possibility to include information about the toxicological feature of the characteristic of the group, of the component included in the group, or information about the pH. This is not mandatory, so it is not checked, but it's possible to provide. And my interchangeable component group is included in the composition. So thank you very much for the attention. This is all, and I remind you, you can find more information about the interchangeable component group in the guidance, firstly, in the practical manual for dossier creation, or in the short summary, the short practical guide that I mentioned before, I mentioned earlier, where the information on including an ICG have been summarized and provided. Thank you very much.
Hello and welcome to my Euclid tour today. I'm going to give a demonstration about a few specific areas of preparing a poison center notification. So in today's demonstration, I'm going to show some of the areas that I've found we get asked most questions about. So I'm going to start with just a general tour of Euclid. We'll look at the dashboard as well as behind the scenes, and I'll show you how to manage and clone entities outside of a notification. We'll next look at some special features such as copying data from a dossier into a new dataset, as well as changing and switching legal entities. Then I'd like to show how to clone and edit a dataset. For example, if you would like to make a new notification after a significant change of composition. Also, we do get quite many questions about how to compile a mixture composition document when preparing a notification for a 100% mixture in mixture. And finally, I want to show how easy it is to manage product information documents. For example, if you have multiple sets of product information for one specific mixture. So as you can see, my demonstration today isn't a step-by-step from start to finish. I've already done that, and you can see my video tutorials on the Poison Center website. So as this is a Euclid tour, we are working in Euclid, and you have two options. You can work online in the Euclid cloud, provided you have an active cloud subscription, or you can download the latest version from the Euclid 6 website, and the links are available in the screen. We also have quite a lot of detailed support on our Poison Center website, but two main areas of support I'd like to draw your attention to is our regulatory support, which is our guidance on Annex 8, and our practical support, which is the PCN Practical Guide. And of course, help is always available. We do ask, though, if you have any regulatory issues or questions, that you contact your national help desk first. If you have other issues related to our IT tools or the submission process, please do contact us through our contact form. And finally, we also have a growing LinkedIn community, which I encourage you to join. We post updates regularly, and you can interact and ask questions from us as well as other group members. So we've got a lot to get through, so let's get started. Okay, so here we've arrived at the Euclid dashboard, and on the dashboard screen, we have a number of widgets, as you can see, one for substances, one for mixtures, and one for articles. And there's also an import area to import reference substances, or in this case, as I'm demonstrating, a legal entity. But for the main part of your Poison Center notifications, these will be created and managed here in the Mixtures widget. But of course, your mixtures will contain substances or mixture components, and these will be visible in these widgets. Just to point out that the Articles widget is not used at all for Poison Center notifications. Rather, it's only used for preparing skip notifications. Let's take a quick trip to the top bar. We have a question mark here, and within this little pop-up box, you can see we have Q&As, and these will link to Q&As for the cloud and portal, but also for a specific regulatory context, such as Poison Center notifications or skip. There's also the possibility to create a support request. If you select technical, this should go to our IT contractor if it is an IT problem. If it is more of a business problem, you can select the category, and this could be, for example, if you have failed a validation rule and you'd like to know how to fix it, then this will also go to our IT contractor, but it will be redirected to the ECHA help desk. There's another tab here which will redirect you to some additional information on the cloud if you're interested, as well as quite many video tutorials about how to work in Euclid in general. This bell icon here is where we would list any general notifications, such as downtime or perhaps scheduled maintenance activities. But please note that ECHA doesn't send any specific notifications to you for example, about a submission. Here you can see my username as well as my legal entity name. And this question mark here, this links to Euclid's functionality manual, which you can select in your preferred language. It is a technical manual, and it does contain quite a lot of information about how Euclid works in general. Highly recommend it. One other area I'd like to draw your attention to is the menu icon on the left side of the page. And from this icon, it's possible to manage various entities outside of a notification. Most useful to Poison Center notification users are the contacts, legal entity, and reference substance. So let's take a quick look at contacts. Here you can see a list of all the contacts that are featured in my notifications. Of course, I can create a new contact. I can open up a contact and edit. I can select and export, delete, and even search for contacts as well. One thing I would like to show you is how to actually clone a contact. When you press on these three dots, you can select clone, and cloning is useful if you would like to change some information about a person. You may want to update the contact information. You might want to change the contact type, for example, can also be performed. Of course, you may want to make changes to the name because it will contain the ending clone. And once we press save, we can go back to the contacts list, and you can see here now I've got a clone of this contact with some slightly different edited information. But coming back to the next part of this demonstration, let's look at some special features when preparing a notification. In this part of the demonstration, I'll explain a little on how to use the feature copy data from, and also we'll check and change the legal entity. So now we're going to go into the mixtures widget, and here all my data sets for my mixture notifications, as well as any mixture in mixture or MIM data sets are listed here as well. In the Dossiers tab, you can see all of the dossiers that I've created or perhaps even imported. But back in the datasets is where we want to work right now. Similar to the contacts, I can select certain datasets and export and delete, and I can even clone as well. But we'll look at that a little later. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I would first need to create a new mixture dataset. So I've created the dataset, and you can see on the left side of the screen in the table of contents, we have the full Euclid format listed here. But we only want to see the PCN related fields. So we need to change the working context to Poison Center notification. And once we apply those changes and open the table of contents again, you can see that the number of sections has been reduced, and it's an empty data set. There are no documents except for this one here on the mixture information and product identity, which is this what we're looking at on the screen here. So next we click on the three dots and we select copy data from. Now, the copy data from feature is useful if you have information in a mixture or even in a dossier that you would like to transfer to a new data set. So let's look at copying information from a dossier. So we need to select Dossier, and then we make the relevant selection. And then we need to select which documents we wish to copy over. So we can select all, as you can see here, or we can select just some parts of that dossier. I would like to copy all of the information over. So I make the selection and select copy. And now when we go back to the table of contents, you can see that I have a lot more documents that have been populated in this data set. I need to also point out here that there are some aspects of the dossier or notification that are not copied over, and this is primarily the dossier header. So I can click on the dossier header, which is this pen and paper symbol, and I need to now fill in the information in the dossier header. Back over into the table of contents, we can open the mixture composition, and we can also see that the mixture composition document has been carried over, and you can see that it also carries this label as copy. We can open up the mixture composition document, and you can see that the substances have been listed and the concentrations have been listed as well. However, I need to point out that currently, if you do copy information from a dossier that was imported into your working instance, it may mean that links to various entities, such as the substances linked to the mixture composition, may not be carried over. One other important area to check is the legal entity. This is located in the mixture identity and legal submitter section. So here you can see that the legal entity owner's name, and if you click on the legal entity document itself, you can see the legal entity UUID. Now, this UUID number often has the prefix ECHA, not always, but quite often, and this all depends where the legal entity was created. In any case, this UUID number is checked against the logged in user of the portal at the time of submission. And if there's a mismatch, the submission will fail a validation rule. So it's very important to check this information here. If for some reason you do need to change a legal entity, perhaps you want to prepare a notification for another company, or perhaps another company's details are present or indicated here, you would need to remove this particular legal entity. So we come up one level, and here, once we click here, we can remove the reference to this legal entity, and we can select from the list available. And I'm going to select the one that I imported just earlier. Bear in mind that as a foreign user, you will be able to see the information in this other account, such as the information in the dataset, but also the dossiers as well. Okay, in this third part of the demonstration, you can see that I'm still working as my own user, but in another account as a foreign user. So let's take a look at the mixture listing, because I want to explain a little more about cloning and editing a data set. So cloning a data set really creates an exact replica of another data set, and this feature may be useful, for example, if you would like to make a new notification after a significant change of composition. So once we find the relevant data set, we click on the three dots and select Clone. Now we might want to update the name of the mixture. And we can open up that data set. Once it's cloned, we will need to provide the working context to Poison Center notifications and apply those changes. Of course, if we are looking at a significant change of composition, we will need to make additional changes to the content of the notification as well and modify the relevant sections. But first off, let's check the dossier header by clicking on the pen and paper icon. I always recommend starting here, as it does create the language specific fields, and of course it sets the framework of the notification. In any case, you can always edit it later. You can enter a dossier name if it is helpful for you, and perhaps a remark. But a PCN number is mandatory information. Now, it's quite simple by just to generate a PCN number by clicking on the circular arrows. We can indicate the market areas. They may be the same or they may be different. And as well as the language. The submission type is set by default to standard information requirements. So you only need to make a selection here if you are deviating from those standard information requirements. You can see here in the notification type that we have a selection of initial, new notification after a significant change of composition, and just regular updates. When you do make an update, you are required to provide a justification as well. But we want to make a notification for a significant change of composition, so we select that box. So we've saved the dossier header, and now we will come back to the main content of the notification. Next, we would look at including the PCN number of the previously related submission in the identifier section. So let's come back to our previously related product, which was scented candle. And in the dossier header, we would copy the PCN number and we would place it in the product identity section under EUFI and other identifiers. So we can open up this here and we can add a new item which is called CLP related PCN number. Then we can paste that number and now it's included into the identifier section. One thing we need to address here is the EUFI number. This EUFI number is linked to the previous mixture composition, so this must be updated as well. So we would remove that reference and enter the new EUFI number for this updated mixture composition. If we've updated our mixture composition, it would mean that we need to include this information in the mixture composition document. So I can either delete the whole mixture composition document and start again, or I can make additions into the document that I already have. I can, of course, update the concentration. And I can also update the particular types of components as well. Of course, if there are other changes to make to the notification, then these should also be edited as well. And once all the changes are made, the dataset can be validated and a dossier created. And if we're working in the cloud, we can proceed to submission. In this next part of the demonstration, I'd like to explain a little how to compile a mixture composition document if you are notifying a 100% mixture in mixture or MIM. Now, I've already created a dataset for this purpose, so let's begin by opening it up and having a look at the mixture composition document. So here we have an empty composition document, and we need to create a new item to put our MIM component into the list. One thing I'd like to point out here, or remind you here, that if you know the full composition of a MIM, then you would need to add each component as a substance, not as a MIM. If you do not know the full composition of the mixture, so in this case, this is when you would add a mixture component. So you can make a selection from the list available, but I don't have one for this purpose, so I'm going to create a new MIM document. We need to add the name of the mixture as supplied to us and indicate a legal entity. This legal entity is only a Euclid requirement, but it is not a PCN requirement. So it is not checked at all, which means that you can add an undefined company name, or you could even add your own legal entity as well. We save that information. And then we need to indicate the concentration. We indicate the typical concentration, which in PCN terms means the exact concentration. One important area I would like to point out is these three specific component types here. Now, these component types are to be used in very specific circumstances which are outlined in the legal text. So you are advised not to use them if the conditions allowing their use are not met. Now, if you're unsure as to whether or not you can use them, we do have help text available. But we also have very informative guidance documents and manuals as well on the topic. So we save this information and then we can come over to the MIM document. Well, you can see a MIM document has been created. So we have the trade name of our mixture as supplied to us, and a MIM document has been created with a number of sections to be filled in. Now, it all depends what information you have available to you as to how you are required to complete the information. But in any case, I'm going to go through each section here today. In some cases, you will have information about the components, for example, from the SDS. So you would be expected to include this data in the MIM composition. So we create a new document and we would add the substance components here. Just to point out that only substance components can be added to a MIM composition, not another MIM within a MIM. So we add a substance component. Now I'm going to use one that I've already created earlier. And we provide the concentration as an example. So once I save that, I can go back to the table of contents and I can open up the composition and I can see that this substance has been added now. When I further open it up, I would like to point out that you need to make sure that each substance within the MIM has been linked to a reference substance and that a classification and labeling document has been added and completed for at least the classification. If you're unsure about how to create and link reference substances, you can check our e-learning page for a very specific video which explains more about this topic. The next section is the MIM EUFI. This is the EUFI that, if available, is the one supplied to you. So you would create a new item and enter in the EUFI regulatory program and include the EUFI number in the ID field. When we get to MIM suppliers, remember that this information in your dossier is crucial in case the appointed bodies need further information. Therefore, the MIM supplier should be EU-based. Now, you can create a legal entity, or rather a supplier, by providing the details of the legal entity name, the telephone number, and the email address. However, if you've already entered this information before, then you can always make a selection from the list as I've done here. The classification and labeling section also needs to be completed. But note that the labeling is not required for components, and this can be included at the main mixture level. And then finally, the safety data sheet section. You can always create a document and upload a safety data sheet. It is possible to do that if you wish so, but please note there is no specific requirement to do so. If you choose to do so voluntarily, you can upload a file, select the country and the language. So staying within this 100% MIM dataset, I'd like to show in this final part of the demonstration how you can manage product information within a notification. Why would you want to do this? Well, if you have various or multiple pieces of product information that you would like to keep separate from each other, you can do so. And what I mean here is if you have, for example, multiple UFIs or maybe multiple trade names or market areas, and you'd like to keep that information separately organized. This is very easy to do in the notification. So I've already prepared one information document for Italy. And here you can see I've relabeled the information document. I have one trade name. I have one UFI, and I have various pieces of information about the color and physical state, the packaging, the uses, and of course the country as well. Now let's assume that I have different information for this same mixture. I may place it on a different market. It may have a different trade name or maybe a different UFI, whatever. I can enter this information as separate items. So I can select new item and add trade name number 2. I can add a new UFI item and add UFI number 2. And I can include different information about the packaging or uses if relevant and select an additional country. This is all possible, but if you would like to manage and keep your information separate to make updating, for example, easier, you can always select a new document and we can add this separate information here. So I may want to give it this information document another name. I can add a second trade name. And I can do the same for the UFI as well. Note with the UFI, I can add or create a new item, or if I choose to, I can also make a selection from the first UFI product record for Italy and reuse that UFI as well. It's also possible to reuse information in the color and physical state, as well as the packaging. I can also select the same or different use types as well. As well as the main intended use. And select the country for market placement. And then I can save all of that information. And now you can see I've got 2 nice and neatly organized product information documents. Thanks so much for your attention today.
So I was saying thank you very much for still keeping with us. We have still around 10 minutes for questions and answers. And during this time, it will be great if any of you wants to take the floor actually and ask us any question. We've seen quite a lot of activity in the Q&A panel, but here the team also is being very, very busy replying to all the questions. So I think we actually replied to all the questions in the Q&A panel. But if any of you have any follow-up question or something that was not covered, please join us here. So my name is Javier Sanchez. I work here in ECHA in the Poison Centers team, together with my colleagues that presented this session today. So I have here in the same room Daniele Ape, Claudia Rimondo, and Heidi Rasikari. And yeah, we will be ready to take any questions on the stage. We see 2 people here trying to take the stage, Matthias Mund Helena and Niemela, is it that you will have a question for us? If so, I think you just need to open your mic, share your audio, and then you can simply ask any question you have. No? Anybody? Was it all clear and all the questions we replied clear enough? While you are thinking about it and maybe thinking the question that you want to share, as I said, simply share the audio and video and you will be on stage, and then we can reply to anything you have in mind. Can be a question or a comment. In the meanwhile, we can go through the polls that we had here, and I'm going to see the results here. We had a number of questions in the poll. The first one was for which types of components the ICG solution applies to your mixtures. And well, the vast majority of you replied that to group components with very similar function, use interchangeably. So that was like a very, very large majority, 95%. The second question actually is someone very interesting for us. And this is where I will also ask you if you can come hopefully with some further details. So the question was about, would you like to see further improvements to the PCN ITO solution in the future? And we have here around 85% of you, so 38 votes saying yes, we would like to see improvements in the future. And so my follow-up question here for any of you who replied yes will be like, could you be a bit concrete at this point and tell us what kind of improvements we could implement? This will be very helpful, and also, yeah, give us some insights on how to move on. No? We have 40 votes on that. Any of those 40 would like to share any ideas on what could be improved? So, Ivo, is that, do you have in the Q&As a reply to this? Will you be willing to share it with your own words, taking the audio and the video? Will be great to have some closer interaction. No, doesn't seem we have any candidates that want to share their voice with us. All right, so the next question we had in the poll was, does the ICG solution apply to your mixture and facilitate the fulfillment of the submission obligations? Here we have...
To say something, but it's not working.
Ah, okay, it's not working. I think you just need to hit the button, share audio and video. And then we should be able to see you here. Yeah, there is a blue button on the top right. It reads share audio and video. You click there, we shall be able to see you. No, we don't see you, Ivo. Okay. Yeah. Ivo says that it's not sending through, but he will keep on trying. All right. Thanks for that. So where were we? Yeah, for the ICG solutions, our question was, does the ICG solution apply to your mixture and facilitate the fulfillment of the submission obligations? And we have here 50% saying only in limited situations. So again, if anyone manages to share the audio and the video with us, we'll be more than happy to hear why only in limited situations. And then the last question we had is, if you make the notifications through to the poison centers, how would you rate the IT solution to prepare a dossier? And here we have like a bit of a split between some of you saying like a fourth saying fairly intuitive, and around 40% saying it's okay, but I need to refer to the support material, and another 36% saying quite challenging. And again, if anyone wants to share why you need to refer to the support material or why it's quite challenging, that also will be very, very useful for us to discuss. No, we don't see anybody here. Now it seems we see Ivo. Ivo, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. You can hear me as well?
Yes, we can hear you. We don't see you, but we hear you at least. That's already great. Thanks a lot for keep on trying. Sometimes it's not easy.
No problem. You wanted me to explain the possibility of checking upfront if EUFI notification had been done in member states. What we see as a consultant is that a lot of products are created from mixtures, of course, mixtures. We're dealing more and more with EUFI codes from suppliers, but what we see there is that because of the lengthy supply chains, it is never really known in what countries the EUFI code has been notified. And at this point, the way it works now, either in Euclid Cloud, you need to build the complete dossier, and in the end, you will notice if a EUFI code has been notified in that specific member state, yes or no. So that means that you will need to do a lot of work before you know if the work that you've done is correct. And with the, let's say, the building the dossier in the Euclid Cloud, that's one thing. We also know that there are a lot of companies using system-to-system or third-party dossier builders, for instance, from a safety data sheet software, etc. These even notice this later because they will notice this this problem when they have already created the dossier and have sent it to the ECHA portal, to the PCN portal. So that will mean that all those systems are also dealing with, let's say, dossier numbering, etc. And it's not that easy to open up such a dossier and then start all over again. So that's why it would be very, very handy in all those cases if there was an opportunity to check whether a EUFI has been notified in certain member states, yes or no. Not information behind the EUFI, just is this EUFI notified in several member states, or put in a EUFI and you will get a list of the member states where that specific EUFI has been notified. So you know how to build up the dossier and also to ask the questions within the supply chain up front of building the dossier.
All right. Thank you very much for the additional explanation. Does any of my colleagues want to react to this idea? No? Daniele?
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for the question. We can understand the usefulness of such a functionality, which, as we replied in the in the Q&A, it is not available at the moment, and there's no plan to do it. Also, because the information, I mean, as long as we need also a change, I mean, in the legal text and the usability of the information, because the legal text is quite clear. The information has to be submitted to the relevant appointed body and can be used and only by the appointed body. So ECHA doesn't even have the mandate to publish and even in principle to look at this information. So basically it's possible to know if a UFI has been submitted in a certain member state only upon submission, thanks to the validation rule. The answer is simple. For that, we can understand it can be useful. For the moment, there's no possibility, and to be honest, it's not even legally possible to do so. Unfortunately, the thing we can suggest and recommend is to communicate as much as possible with your supplier, asking them where and if the mixture has been notified in a specific member state, or otherwise the only other option is to inquire directly in the specific member state or appointed body, even if we know that maybe they don't reply straight away.
Thanks, Daniele. And thanks again, Aibo, for the question. I see we are getting a few more questions, so I wonder if we can spend a couple of minutes more. I know the session was ending at 5, but maybe once we see a bit of more activity. So I see a couple of questions from Annabelle. Annabelle, would you be willing to share the questions with us, taking the microphone and joining us here virtually? Again, if you want to just connect with us, you just share audio and video, and we will be able to see it. I think we see you already here. You should be up in a minute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Okay,
nice to
finally.
see you.
Nice. Okay. I have two questions in the panel. One for Claudia concerning the cessing of a product in the market. She explained that if this is the case, we will have two columns when at the end of October the new Porto will be released. One for to put the countries in which the product is still commercialized and another in which we cease the commercialization. But for example, in my case, we have different legal entities in Europe. So in our company, we notify country per country. So is it going to be possible to inform that we cease the commercialization of a product in Spain, just clicking any country current commercialization and cease it in Spain, or this is something strange for the system?
Thank you, Annabelle, for the question. And it will be possible to indicate that, so, you know, at the product record level, you will have these two lists, as you correctly recalled. And you will just have to indicate the tick on Spain in the cease country list. The other list, the active country list, will remain empty. What you need to make sure is that the list in the dossier header remains the same, because that that reflects the recipients basically of your notification, which means that still Spain will be notified that the dossier, the product has been seized, but they will keep receiving updates in case there are.
Okay, clear. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the other question is regarding notification as meme that has been explained by Heidi, that I don't know if he's in the room. In any case, I will tell you the question. I already have done some notification in which I don't know the full composition, because the owner of the composition, let's say, is another company who already notified the product. So I notify indicating that my product is 10% the other one. And when I do that, I have a doubt. Do I need to know the exact trade name of the, let's say, the father product, the initial product, or could I indicate in a general, let's say, name?
Hi, Annabelle. Thank you for the question. I think I recall us discussing this once before, but indeed, if you have the MIM composition, then like you create the MIM composition document and you have all the different sections that you need to fill in, one for the MIM UFI, one for the MIM identity, then my understanding is that you should provide the name of the MIM as supplied to you. There are other fields in the MIM document that you can add other names of the mixture, because I think you deal with biocides correctly.
Plant protection products.
Plant protection
mainly.
Products. Yeah. Sorry. That you have some special cases that people know a particular mixture by not necessarily the trade name, but by the like dare I say, everyone knows the name Roundup. As glyphosate as well. So I mean, like which would you call it? The trade name or the name that we all know it by? But you should identify the mixture, the mixture as it was supplied to you, and then you can add the additional information as well. Unless my colleagues would have something else to add. Yes.
Hi, Annabelle. No, just to complement, the identification of the MIM is always the same and follow the same requirement, regardless of the fact that it's 100% MIM or less than 100% MIM. And the regulation requires you to provide the name of this MIM according to Article 18.3 of CLP, which basically says that you have to provide either the trade name or any other identifier. So it's a bit vague. You just have to provide the name, which is the name that is used to clearly identify the MIM. You have to remember that the purpose is always to facilitate the poison center work. So whatever is the name that, in your opinion, is the best name to identify clearly this MIM, that's the name they should provide it. Because as I said, the legal text is relatively vague because you have to use the trade name or designation of the mixture. So keep in mind that the idea is just not to fill in a field in Euclid. It's to provide the information which can be really used by the poison center to identify the component.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for your questions, Annabelle. Is there anything else you have in your mind or that you want to share?
Thank you so much.
Thanks to you. I see, and maybe with this we could close. Another question from Heidi van den Broek. I wonder if Heidi, you're still here in the room, would you like to take the floor and ask the question? And yeah, and then we can enter in a discussion about that. Yes, I think she's joining.
Yeah.
Yes. Hello.
Yes.
Welcome.
Yeah, my question was like, and maybe also Annabelle knows it, for products, for example, regulated by the Plant Protection Regulation or the BPR, the final product or the mixture can be differently classified depending on the member state evaluation. And I was wondering, because the UFI is based on the composition, but here you have the same composition, but you can have, depending on the countries, you put it on a lot of different classifications. So I was wondering, let's say, what would be a good approach for your poison center notification? Because it is a bit strange, of course, having a same UFI, but of course, these classification differences.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay.
Hi, Heidi. Yes, we are aware of this issue. I think we were already approached by some other people working in the sector. We understand that some of the products may be classified differently according to the member state. And at the moment, our format does not allow to indicate more than one classification. But if the composition is the same UFI can be used because the UFI is linked to the composition. And basically, in that case, you cannot submit a multi-country submission, but you need to submit one separate notification in each country.
Okay, so there then it would be very useful what Heidi also just like the copying of the data sets, where you then would have already a lot of information copied, and then you could just focus on the classification part, I assume. Okay.
Exactly. Then you can clone the data set and then modify the information that you need to modify.
Okay, thanks for that practical advice.
Thanks to you. So I think we covered all the questions. Thanks a lot for the participation. And we still have for the conference around 20 minutes or so. So take the opportunity to do some networking. On our side, we will be also for a few minutes in our booth on the Poison Centers. So if you want to pass by there, we'll still be there for some more minutes. Otherwise, just enjoy the rest of the conference and have a nice day. Thank you very much.